doing a special video on, I don't know if we should call it an exit interview for Ready to Love, because Keyra actually hasn't been kicked off yet, although we know it's coming. It's coming. It's coming real soon. But she did do an interview with Crystal XO. It was a good interview, and I watched it. So I'm here to talk about it, to tell you what I think of Keyra now after watching her on the show, and then after watching her on the interview with a Crystal XO. I'll tell you this. I kind of feel a little bit about the same way, to be honest with y'all. I feel as if she definitely got ganged up on by the Mean Girl crew. Y'all saw my thumbnail. In fact, I need to explain my thumbnail because I'm expanding the group. I'm officially expanding the group from the Mean Girls, which are Janelle and Jessica, and I'm adding the bouncer in, who's Maurier. You know, from the very beginning, I told you I had a problem with Maurier, and you guys need to go back and watch my very original video about Maurier. It's up on my webpage under the videos, and I said he likes to throw a lot of shade. And now here we are on what, episode 6? Episode 6. And Maurier is up to the same old tricks. I think Maurier is the bouncer for Janelle and Jessica. And this interview with Crystal XO and Keyra kind of confirmed it for me. You know, I started noticing that Maurier was at the center. He was always at the center of the crime. He was always in the mix for a woman going home. Remember, there's only been how many women that have gone home? 3? The first woman that went home was Leanne, and it was Maurier's damning testimony against Leanne that she was insensitive to his father dying that sent her home. He went in the men's lounge. He influenced the men to send Leanne home. Then the next person that went home was Tequila. Remember, he was the other person that was in the lounge talking about how Tequila called him and said this to him. Once again, he issued some damning testimony to be the nail in the coffin on Tequila as well. I'm not saying these other women didn't have reasons to go home, but I'm just saying that Maurier seemed to always be at the scene of the crime. The last woman that went home was Eunuch. I got her name right. I was calling her Unique weeks before. It's Eunuch. I'm sorry, it's Unique, not Eunuch. It's Unique. Thank you for my viewers for correcting me. And he was the one in the men's lounge that said she was on his bottom. That's what he said, Maurier. And once again, she went home. And now we have probably next week, Keyra's going to go home. I don't know if they're going to do a double elimination like they did with the men this week, but they're going to send someone home. And more than likely, it's going to be Keyra. And on this last week, Maurier of the double elimination, and there were 3 men on the bottom. It was Maurier, Christopher, and it was also Maurier, Christopher, and Marvin. And remember, the only one that got saved was Marvin because he had the 2 mean girls backing him up and voting for him. And he was able to stay on the show. So I do believe that Maurier is the bouncer for the Mean Girls Club because I think Maurier has problems. I told you he's a walking hypocrite. He's a walking hypocrite. And he's been the one jumping on Keyra as well, saying that he needs a woman that's more black, more into the culture, more into the community. I guess that wants to do marches with him at Black Lives Matters. Well, you know what? Maurier needs to stop marching and he might need to start running and get some of that weight off. Maybe too many marches is the problem. Maybe he needs to do some more running. So I absolutely believe that they ganged up on Keyra to get her off the show. And I'll go a step further. I do believe they were also instrumental in getting Christopher off because this is what I think. I think that bad date that Christopher had with Sierra, because I do think Sierra is affiliated with the Mean Girls group. I don't think she's a mean girl, but I think she's a gang affiliated. You know what they say out here in LA? Are you gang affiliated? I think she's affiliated with them. Because I watched that little, when Janelle had her rant on IG, and I watched the video of her IG rant, and Sierra, there was 2 people down in the comments supporting her throughout her IG, and the 2 people were Maurier and Sierra. So yeah, I think Sierra is a gang affiliated, And I think what happened was when Christopher had that bad date with Sierra, along with the fact that Christopher said his top connection was Keyra, he got put up for elimination. Because I really was surprised that Christopher went home. I did think he needed some correction. I do. I think he's been doing some things wrong on the dates. I think he needed correction. But I was surprised that he was the one that went home in the double elimination. But now that I know how this little clique is working, now I'm not so surprised. But I can't absolve Keyra of all her wrongdoing. That's the other part. That's the other coin of this. The other side of this coin is that Keyra was an easy target, and a lot of the fact that she was an easy target, she did it herself. I almost say that, Janelle and Jessica, they're like sharks. They look for blood in the water, and the minute they smell blood in the water, they know how to pounce on it. They know how to attack it. They know how to take it down. And there's a couple of people who have fallen victim to the onset and the barrage of Janelle, and who knows, maybe Jessica in the background. I don't know. And Keyra just didn't know what she was up against. But you know what? She was the one that spilled the blood in the water, that summons the shark to come, and all they did was take advantage of the opportunity. That's what I'm going to say. It actually was Keyra, though, who actually spilled the blood in the water. And it was Janelle and Jessica and Maurier who they reacted to the blood in the water. Now, anybody else who isn't a shark out here, they might have seen what Keyra did. They might have seen what Keyra did. They might have been upset about it, like myself. They may not have liked it, but they may not have gone as far as what Janelle has done, to the point where she's screaming and yelling at Keyra in the ladies' lounge. For what? Keyra hasn't done anything to her. So all of a sudden now, Janelle is taken up for Quentin, because really the offense that Keyra did initially was to Quentin. And now you have Janelle fighting for Quentin on Quentin's behalf. I think Janelle was more than happy to become the shark and to jump on Keyra. But it was Keyra who spilled the blood in the water. And let me tell you, she spilled the blood a lot of different ways. One of the things I like about these interviews is I'm hoping that the people, even though they've made mistakes, it's not where you start, it's where you finish, is that you'll come back, you'll learn your lessons, and you'll do different next time. I do believe that Keyra learned some lessons, because I don't think she expected things to come down on her this hard. But she actually was the one that spilled the blood. And I'm going to tell you, I wasn't quite completely satisfied with all of Keyra's answers, because I don't think that she fully took responsibilities for some of the things that she said. And one of the things was, she tried to say that when she went to Quentin and started talking about him dating white girls, she tried to make it sound like she asked him a question, which isn't true. She didn't ask him a question. She didn't come from a place of curiosity. She didn't come and say, hey, do you like to date women of different ethnicities? Do you like to date women outside your race? That would be coming and asking a question out of curiosity. That wouldn't have seemed so derogatory. If she would have just come and said, hey, you know what? Do you date women outside? Do you date other women besides black women? Do you date outside your race? Do you date Latino women? There wouldn't have been no problem with that. But what Keyra did was, Keyra said, you look like a person who dates white girls. Do you date? Is that what you do? Tell me about it. That's completely different. She didn't come from a place of curiosity with Quentin. She came from a place of judgment. And she came from that place of judgment, now that we find out, not off of too much information. That's the other problem I had with Keyra. Is Keyra actually did a dog whistle. That is a dog whistle in the black community when you accuse a black man of not liking to date black men. We all know that's a dog whistle. So she blew the dog whistle, and now she's wondering why the hound dogs are all over her. That I didn't like. And even in this Crystal Exo video, she kept trying to make it seem like she was just asking a question out of curiosity. No, it wasn't a question, Keyra. You made a statement. You made a judgment. That's completely different. And I need her to own that. And I need her to say that that was wrong. That's what I need her to say for me to fully believe she's learned her lesson. The other reason why the sharks had blood in the water on Keyra, because I find out that Keyra goes by her middle name. Keyra's first name is something like Lanicia or something. Now, I did this video earlier when I did Tequila, And I had talked about how I felt that that a lot of Taquilla's behavior was ghetto. I said that she's feeding into a lot of the stereotypes of ghetto behavior. I said, and then coupled with her name being Taquilla, I said that along with her name and her behavior is giving me stereotypical ghetto girl. I did say that. And I said that if she felt that she were prejudged a lot by her name, but yet she wasn't that person, she wasn't that ghetto girl, I said, well, maybe she had to change her name. I sure did say it. A lot of you really got on me. A lot of you said that's giving me self-hate. A lot of you said that's giving me, I don't know, like you're abandoning the black culture. Well, guess what? Keyra changed her name. Maybe Keyra felt that her name was too black. I think I don't know how to pronounce her name. Lanicia, I don't know for sure. I really don't know. But it sounds as if she doesn't go by that name. She goes by her middle name, which is Keyra. So maybe at some point in time, Keyra also felt judged by her first name, and she decided that she didn't want to be judged by that name anymore, and she decided to go by her middle name. I don't know. Chris Alexo didn't go into it. She didn't ask her. I probably would have asked her, why did you start going by your middle name? Because there is a part of Keyra, okay, that is a part of her where I think there is a lack of curiosity when understanding some of the undertones within the black community, whether she wants to distance herself from it or not, whether she wants to do it on her own, maybe it's what's happened. I'm not for sure, but it is there. And I think she does need to acknowledge that and not act as if we are seeing something and hearing something we're not seeing and we're not hearing, because that's not true. I'm all for giving people grace, but before I give you grace, you're going to need to admit some things. You're going to need to admit that you've done some things wrong, and then I'm all for forgiveness. I'm all for forgiveness and moving forward, but you're going to need to admit to some things. And I don't think that Keyra did enough admitting that some of the things she said and did in regards to Quentin was wrong. And it wasn't just the Quentin thing. She said several things. She started talking about how, all my friends are white. People tell me I talk white. And she did have a moment of self-reflection, and I actually appreciate it from her. In the interview, she mentioned a moment where she said she believes in a lot of ways she might have been getting ahead of the narrative, because all her life she's been told she speaks white, she talks like a valley girl. I think she used the word valley girl. And so what she did was she got in front of it. She actually addressed it right away and said that she knows she talks like a white girl. This is what she's saying. And maybe she said that was a way to cut it off at the pass. I don't know. But the way that she did it was more as if she was accepting the labels. That's different. It's one thing to say, oh, I know people think I talk like a valley girl or I talk white, but I don't actually internalize that, because I don't think that's who I am. What she did was, though, she claimed it. She actually said that was her. And that's why I'm saying I don't think that she can just keep saying people called her these things, because Keyra actually called herself these things and accepted these labels graciously. It's almost like she wanted the labels. So that's why I'm telling you, a part of me with Keyra is that although I can recognize she was absolutely bullied by Jessica and Janelle, I also think that she has to take some responsibilities for what she did and the narratives that she came on the show with, and the narratives that she perpetuated, and the blood that she spilled in the water that essentially invited the sharks to come and attack her. I'll say this when it comes to the word of calling a black girl a valley girl. I have some deep history with this, because I don't know if you young people know where the term valley girl came from, but it came from California. It came from California, and they made a movie about it. Because in California, back in the 80s, there is the Valley. If anyone of you visited here, it's called the Valley. It's in LA County, but it's about 20 miles outside of the city, the city of LA. It's about 20 miles out, but it's in the county. And in the 80s, there was a movie called The Valley Girls. And it was because the girls in the Valley, San Fernando Valley, places like this, they talked like, oh my God, I can't believe you're doing this. They had like this Valley Girl accent. But at first, it was primarily used to describe white girls. But in the 80s, which I'm a product of the 80s, in the 80s, and that's why I say I kind of feel some way for Keyra, because this is actually more deeper than just what I think even Keyra knows. I don't know if Keyra even knows where the Valley Girl term came from. But anyway, in the 80s, there became integration in LA, in LA's public schools. And like I told you, the Valley is a part of Los Angeles. It is not part of the city of LA, but it's part of the county, and it's a part of the entire Los Angeles Unified School District. So during the 80s, black girls and boys, including myself, we were integrated into various schools outside of our prime communities. Okay, we were bused 20 miles outside of where we actually lived. Now, I didn't go to the Valley School, but I went to another school, predominantly a white school in Los Angeles, but I didn't go to the Valley School. But I'm going to tell you a lot of the stuff was happening there too. And what happened was, which is even more deeply rooted in this, was that a lot of the children, a lot of the young students that those white schools allowed to be integrated from Los Angeles to those Valley schools and the schools I went to, it was also based off of income levels of those blacks and where those blacks lived. They essentially took the middle class blacks. My family, I grew up middle class. I did not grow up poor. I did not grow up in South Central. I did not grow up in those types of neighborhoods. So when those schools came a-looking, because they were forced to integrate, they went to the neighborhoods in which those kids were already somewhat, what they felt weren't as black. That's what they did. That's what they did. Look up the history of it. That's what they did. So then there were kids from Los Angeles, middle-class black families lived in middle-class black neighborhoods. We were bused to these integrated schools in the Valley. Well, eventually what started happening was when these black kids were bused to these white schools, when those black kids would come back to their neighborhoods, guess what the blacks in the neighborhood started calling those black girls who got bused to the Valley? They started calling them black Valley girls. They started saying that they spoke like they were white. So this is really a big thing in the black community. So if Janelle, Jessica, and Maurier were really, really deep rooted in the black community, they would also know how hurtful it is to divide black people with this term, because it really was a source of hurt, especially here in Los Angeles with black people who were bused to these Valley schools and these schools that were predominantly white. Lots of times when these kids came back to their neighborhoods, they didn't fit in the white schools because they were black. And now they didn't even fit into their black communities anymore, because a lot of the black kids who didn't get to go to those schools, sometimes they were upset and they were mad, and it caused even more division within the black community. So that's the history. Y'all can look it up. I'm not going to go too far deep into it. That's why I was very surprised with Keyra when she was owning that persona, that she talks like a white girl, she's a Valley girl. And I said, I don't know why she's accepting that label, because that label, the history of that label comes from a very, very dark and mean place. Eventually, I think that spread throughout the U.S., and it wasn't just here in Los Angeles, and I think people just use it as a term. But the history of it, it started in Los Angeles, and it started over something very, very horrible. But one of the things that Keyra did point out in the interview was that she probably was coming from behind it in this Ready to Love season anyway, because she barely turned 30. I think she's the youngest one on the show. And although she says she does have an interest in dating older men, she pointed out that there were only 10 men and 10 women, and 7 of the men on the show already had children. So in her eyes, if you are a woman who's only 30 and you don't have any kids, and you want to start your own family with a man that doesn't already have a family, what she's saying is there were only 3 men out of the 10 that didn't even have children at all. So what she's saying is, this wasn't the crop of man that I was hoping for. I would have wanted Keyra to read the room a little bit more. I would have wanted her to take a little bit more ownership. I think the way that she handled the situation with Quentin was wrong. It was wrong. And she didn't come from a place of curiosity. She came from a place of judgment. She didn't ask Quentin. She judged Quentin. She didn't ask. She judged him. And I've noticed that Quentin has a brand on his arm, that he's a member of the Omega Psi Phi fraternity. I noticed that he wears it around his neck. And if she knew anything about black fraternities, she would know the history of the organization that Quentin was a part of. Doesn't mean that he won't date women outside his race. No. But she should know that if he is a member of that organization that is primarily existed to support the Black community, she should know that he has a connection and is deeply rooted to the Black community. And she should have known that before she went to him with some BS talking about, you look like you only date white girls. That was wrong. She set herself up to get fired on, but what she underestimated the veracity of the Mean Girls crew. That's where she went wrong. What she was hoping for is she would say that amongst people, maybe like myself, where although we might correct her and we might tell her a little bit about herself, we wouldn't have gotten on her as bad as Janelle and Jessica did. And Maurier. So although I think she learned some things on the show, I think there's a few more things she needs to learn. I think there's more accountability she has to take. And I think she can't just write off as one mistake, because there were several mistakes that she did. It wasn't one sentence, one thing she did. There were 3 or 4 things that she did. So she does need to do a little bit more introspection, and she does need to do a little bit more correction. I'm going to give her the grace that she needs, because like I said, I understand the deep rootedness of being called a valley girl or too proper or you talk white. I understand it, but I'm not going to absolve her of the work that she needs to do. She needs to do more work. And I'm not going to let her off the hook just because she got attacked by a bunch of sharks and mean girls and Janelle and Jessica. No. Even if they weren't even on the show, she needs to do more work. But anyway, that's it, y'all. Talk to you later. Bye.